If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Law by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we are going to go through everything you need to know in order to create your own Ghost Hunter and medium in World of Darkness Ghost Hunters for the 20th anniversary edition of the World of Darkness games. Before we properly sink our teeth into tonight's episode, I wish to tell you what you will need in order to follow along with me to make your first Ghost Hunter or medium in World of Darkness Ghost Hunter. First and foremost, you'll need a copy of the World of Darkness Ghost Hunters book, either as a physical or a PDF copy, if you are a weirdo or allergic to books or something. If you are playing the game old school with the archaic devices known as pen and paper, you may have a friend or two who is willing to lend you their copy, but as more and more Ghostbusters are seeking the like of Discord and Roll20 to play, it is highly unlikely someone will just lend you a copy of their book from afar. It is advised also to have a copy of Wraith the Oblivion 20th Anniversary Edition in order to fill out the nature and demeanor parts of the character sheet. However, it is fully possible and encouraged to use any World of Darkness 20th Anniversary Edition book for that, in addition to any merits and flaws you wish to give your character, for merits and flaws do not exist for Wraiths. To that end, I will be using Wraith the Oblivion 20th Anniversary Edition alongside this book, unless otherwise stated. The easiest place to buy a physical or digital copy of any 20th Anniversary Edition book and any other supplement books you may need is by going to drivethroughrpg.com. I am going to make the bold assumption that if you have purchased this book, you are vaguely familiar with the setting of Wraith the Oblivion. I will also presume that you have discovered Wraith the Oblivion from one of three popular sources. You have picked it up through playing the necromantic clans of Vampire the Masquerade, the Echoes of New York City's actual play on Q Times' YouTube channel, or more recently, the VR Wraith the Oblivion game, Afterlife. If, however, this is your first venture into the World of Darkness, and you just fancy playing as mortals wanting to hunt some ghosts and do not care for the lore of Wraith, that is totally fine. World of Darkness Ghost Hunters leans into the less is more approach to the extent that it is imperative to achieving maximum impact on the players. Fear of the unknown is the driving force behind this game/supplement. Once you have the core book and any other source books you want, you will need a character sheet. DriveThruRPG doesn't easily provide PDF copies, so you'll have to look elsewhere to find an interactive PDF character sheet. For this episode, I'll be using the MrGon.RockSolidShells.com interactive sheets, but there are others available, should you wish to use a different format. With that preparation shenanigans biting the dust, one can now begin to create their Ghost Hunter or medium character. There is no system or dice roll to be made when determining your character's stats, unless you really want to, of course. You are free to design the character you want to play in your story. World of Darkness Ghost Hunters uses the Storyteller system, which encourages players to become one with their character, to possess them, as it were. Ghost pun aside, World of Darkness Ghost Hunters has players assume the role of the mostly ordinary mortals who pursue the passion of ghost hunting. What drew your character into the World of Darkness? What are they looking for? What are the answers they are hoping to get, and what would stop them from investigating any more? How does your character explain their supernatural experiences? Through faith, spirituality, or science? Chances are, it is not their entire life. They probably have a job, friends, family, and hobbies outside of the busting of ghosts. What sort of person were they in life? What do they do? How do they go about doing it? These are just some of the questions you should be asking yourself to help you get into the shoes of your Ghost Hunter or medium. Such questions will also help you fill out most of the boxes at the top of the character sheet. Name is your character's name, whether it's their actual name or a pseudonym. Blair is your name, and if you are struggling with that, just write Fishmilk there. It won't upset anyone, I promise. Chronicle is the name of the story you will be playing in. Concept defines your character's notions, occupation, and potential role within the group. Age is how old your character is. Sex defines their gender or lack of one, and it's the sacred duty of the storyteller and players to respect these choices. Organization is the name assigned to your Ghost Hunter group, whether it is one of the organizations mentioned in the World of Darkness Ghost Hunters book, Wraith the Oblivion 20th Anniversary Edition, The Quick and the Dead, or one of your own creation. As for my example character, Taylor Shimamura grew up in a very strict and demanding household. Their Japanese father pressed what he considered to be his daughter to pursue the true educational paths, the maths and sciences, whilst Taylor's American mother didn't approve of Taylor's tomboy foolery. The parents had hoped that Taylor would be a good child and do as they pleased. Taylor was anything but subservient. They didn't want to be a doctor or a well-paid banker and really wasn't comfortable in cutesy girly dresses like a child trophy at a pageant. Taylor loved the arts, specifically photography. That was their dream, to capture the dying world in its beauty. Embracing goth culture and all things spoopy, Taylor found a niche for themselves, taking photos of abandoned factories and derelict mansions, which, combined with their unique take on horror art, became well known within certain circles. Taylor would experiment with different art styles, photography and editing styles to diversify themselves, to really express horror in all of its forms. They would collect a myriad of cameras and films, including one Carillion camera, an old, sturdy 20th century looking camera that started to reveal supernatural entities. Taylor would include these sightings in their own personal work, which caught the attention of the Phoenix Institute, for which Taylor works with extensively as the organization goes about their ghost busting across the United Kingdom. There are 2 boxes remaining at the top of the character sheet. Nature and demeanor are very similar in definition, but are very different in how one would use them, for they define you and your character and how they interact with the world. Demeanor is how you choose to present your character to the world, whilst nature is how you truly are. To use an extremely crass example, you may seem like the nicest person in the world in the public eye, but deep down, you are a deranged psychopath who eats babies for breakfast without the smallest amount of remorse. Now, going back to the character creation process, both nature and demeanor splinter off into many archetypes, each one providing different ways for players to regain willpower, a finite resource a player may use in a tricky situation. There are lots to choose from, so I'll let you discover those for yourself. Now, to add this information to Taylor, they are excited by their work and to the discovery of what lies beyond the veil, excited about what they can discover and what stories could be told with their captures, heading into some creepy places to discover what it all means. That, and it pays well. With these reasons in mind, it would make sense to me that Explorer is the demeanor. This would allow Taylor to gain back willpower whenever they discover something previously unknown. As for their nature, I would believe that a lot of Taylor's upbringing would bleed into their workflow, whether Taylor would want to admit it or not. I can see Taylor becoming quite obsessive over capturing perfection, seeing everyone else as a rival that would steal their thunder. Taylor would have to be, otherwise they wouldn't be in demand as a freelance artist and photographer. I believe competitor would be a good fit. This would allow Taylor to regain a willpower point when they succeed at a competitive challenge. Now that you've established some lore regarding your character, you should have an idea what sort of person they are when you assign points into your attributes. How do they solve their problems? Fighting, thinking, or talking? How would they naturally interact with the world? The attribute section is made up of 3 sections: physical, mental, and social. You start by assigning 1 point in all attributes. You then distribute 6 to a primary attribute, 4 to a secondary attribute, and 3 to a tertiary group. If you decide to put 4 points in a particular attribute, you can choose to assign a specialty to it. Taylor is not much of a fighter, but has been a bit of an explorer, meaning they're quite dexterous and in good shape. More importantly, they are on the ball when it comes to their art, as they are not only have to be careful examining any photo opportunity, but for anyone occupying the place, mainly any security, and any potential dangerous hazards in said site. So, it would make sense for me to make the mental attribute to the primary one, the physical attribute to the secondary group, and the social attribute to the tertiary group. Taylor's strength will be left at 1, whilst dexterity and stamina will be at 3. With the social attribute, charisma is 2, manipulation is 1, and appearance is 3. With the mental attributes, her perception is 4, intelligence is 2, and her wits is 3. Dice rolls in World of Darkness games are usually made up of 1 attribute plus an ability, as there are many ways of demonstrating feats of strength and intelligence, unless you're wanting to deadlift a donkey for example, as that would be pure strength by my reckoning at least. The abilities are divided up into, from left to right, talents, skills, and knowledges. Similarly to attributes, abilities are prioritized into primary, secondary, and tertiary groups, with no skill getting more than 3 points at this point. That said, any dots that are 4 or higher later down the line can have a specialty assigned to it. This means that when using a specialty, you may reroll any 10s you get for more successes, which is assuming you are using Wraith the Oblivion 20th Anniversary Edition rules. The primary group gets 13 points, the secondary group gets 9 points, and the tertiary group gets 5 points. The distribution of Taylor's points should reflect their hard-working attitude with photography, their education, and nimbleness as they explore wherever inspiration takes. Starting with the talents, Taylor's alertness and athletics is 3, awareness is 1, empathy is 1, expression is 2, and persuasion, which is labelled as perception here for some reason, is 3. Moving on to skills, drive is 1, and stealth and survival are 2. And with knowledges, academics is 3, computer is 1, investigation is 3, and technology is 2. Next is the advantages section, which is where the character creation process truly becomes unique. We shall ignore Demeanor for now and look at backgrounds, for which you have 5 points to spend. These should support the character concepts. A homeless medium is unlikely to have lots of cash, for example. World of Darkness Ghost Hunters does provide some new backgrounds which may not be appropriate for some characters and chronicles. Likewise, most, if not all, Wraith the Oblivion 20th Anniversary Edition backgrounds are not appropriate for mortal ghost hunters, so I shall be using backgrounds from Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition in its place. To begin with, Taylor will have 1 dot in fame and 4 dots in resources. Now, I will add those later with experience points, as you noticed there is a certain artifact that they cannot have just yet. Following this is the virtues section, which provides the moral backbone for characters, how far they will go for understanding, and how well they will keep their composure in the face of danger. Conscience governs a character's sense of right and wrong. Self-control is how they maintain the composure, and courage determines their gumption. You start with 1 point in the 3 options and then spend 7 additional dots amongst the virtues as you see fit, but be careful as they determine your character's humanity and willpower. Your humanity is conscience plus self-control, and your willpower is the same as your courage points. So with regard to Taylor, their conscience is 3, the self-control is 4, and courage is 3. Now this means that the willpower is 3 and the humanity is 7, because 3 plus 4 is 7. We have almost finished creating your first ghost hunter or medium. The last thing that needs to be done is to spend your 21 freebie points on whatever you want, including the purchasing of Demeanor, if you think it is appropriate for your character to really have those powers. Background and willpower costs 1 point. Humanity, virtue and ability cost 2 points. Attribute costs 5 points, and Demeanor costs 7 points. These numbers change when you spend experience points at the end of each session. However, World of Darkness Ghost Hunters does not provide what those numbers are, so I'm assuming that is relying on the storyteller to refer to a World of Darkness 20th Anniversary Edition core book for said stat increases. Regardless of which system you use for the expenditure of said points to increase Demeanor, it is the current rating times 7. There is also the option of buying merits and flaws that make your character all the more unique. Merits grant you special advantages that make you stand out from the rest of the hunters in the chronicle. Flaws are the exact opposite and worth adding to your character sheet. After all, no one is perfect. Each merit has its own point expenditure, and flaw adds a certain number of freebie points you can spend if we are to use Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition rules, as Wraith the Oblivion 20th Anniversary Edition does not contain merits and flaws. You can purchase as many merits as you can afford, but you can't have more than 7 points of flaws. So what have we done with Taylor? Well, first things first, I'm giving them that Korean camera by giving them an additional point of resources, taking them up to 5. They now have somewhere to live, for I've given them 1 dot of domain. They also have 2 contacts. You can decide who they are in the comments if you're listening to this on YouTube. I've increased their willpower by 3, making the total of 6. I've added 1 dot to computers and 1 dot in melee. I've also added a dot in awareness, a dot in brawl, 2 dots in empathy, and a dot in expression. Once you've finished adding freebie points, you can finally say that you've made your first World of Darkness Ghost Hunter or Medium. Yes, the book has all that you need to understand the character creation process, but I have found that it sometimes helps to have someone walk you through the process, rather than nag your storyteller 100 times. To be kept updated, follow the Law by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.